In the heart of a neon-drenched city, a lonely pilot walked into a shop searching for a simple companion. But what he found was no pet at all. It was a mysterious woman bound by a collar, a secret hidden behind her piercing eyes, and a truth that would drag him into a war of shadows across the stars. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The rain never stopped in Lumenport. Neon signs glowed against wet streets, their colors bleeding into pools that rippled beneath passing footsteps. Corin Vale pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders as he walked past vendors, their stalls alive with holographic ads promising wonders. Cybernetic pets, virtual dream vacations, memory enhancers. The city offered everything except peace. For 3 years, Corin had flown the Aurora kite alone. He carried cargo across star systems, docking at ports that never felt like home. Silence had become his constant companion. It was the kind of silence that echoed, pressing against him in the ship's narrow halls until it seemed louder than sound itself. Tonight, he wanted something to fill that silence. Not a crew, not more obligations, just company. His eyes caught on a building different from the cluttered neon around it. Its sign read Celestial Bonds in 6 languages. No garish lights, no shouting advertisements, only a soft glow that seemed to invite him in. Corin hesitated. The street noise dimmed in his mind as a sharp instinct warned him away. But the silence, waiting back on his ship, was louder. He pushed open the door. The shop was larger inside than it seemed from the street. Tanks shimmered with strange aquatic forms. Cages held creatures that flickered like fire, and birds whose feathers shone with crystal edges. Behind the counter stood a tall figure, skin patterned with scales that shifted colors with each movement. The alien smiled with perfect practice. "Welcome, traveler," it said in a smooth tone. "I am Senric. We provide companions, not just pets. All contracts are legal and fair." Corin frowned. "Contracts? I just want a companion. Something quiet, intelligent but simple." Senric's eyes glittered. "I know exactly what you seek. Follow me." They walked deeper into the shop. The air cooled. Lights dimmed to a pale blue. Corin expected some rare animal, a luxury meant to impress diplomats. Instead, from behind a partition, someone stepped forward on hands and knees. She was humanoid. Too humanoid to be called anything else. Her skin shimmered with a faint silver-blue glow, like polished stone under light. Long dark hair veiled part of her face until she lifted it. Her eyes, sharp and blue, locked on Corin with a gaze that made him stop breathing. A collar around her neck flickered with a holographic tag. "This is Lysa," Senric said. "A Nexian, adaptable, loyal, intelligent beyond measure. She has entered into a 6-month contract willingly. The arrangement is within coalition law. 50,000 credits for the term." Corin's pulse quickened. "Willingly," he repeated, but he could read the truth in her eyes. Her stare was steady, but beneath it was something harder. Desperation, pride, a plea that words could not shape. "Can you speak?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she answered in fluent English, her voice soft but certain. "My name is Lysa." "And you want this contract?" Corin pressed, her lips curved in a shadow of humor. "As willing as one can be when the alternative is hunger on a dying world." Senric leaned forward eagerly. 50,000 credits is modest. She is rare. You will find no better companion." Corin clenched his jaw. He had come here for something simple. Instead, he was staring at a woman treated like property. Every instinct told him to turn around. Instead, he heard himself speak. "I'll take her, but not to treat her like this." The contract synced to his wrist console. Glyphs scrolled across his display, legal clauses stacked one on another. He signed without reading them. He only knew he could not leave her in that place. The collar flickered, syncing to his ID. Lysa rose to her feet, straightening with calm dignity. She did not bow. She did not thank him. She simply stood beside him, her head held high, as if she had chosen this path herself. They stepped into the wet night of Lumenport. Rain struck the streets, splashing against glowing puddles. Corin kept his voice low. "Listen, I don't know what this is, but I won't treat you like a pet." For the first time, her expression softened. Real relief crossed her face. "Good," she whispered, "because I am not one." Back at the docks, the Aurora kite waited. Its metal hull gleamed beneath heavy rain. As the ship's clamps released and engines rumbled to life, Corin felt a strange weight settle in his chest. He had left the shop with more than he bargained for. The ship's AI interrupted with a crisp, mechanical tone. "Priority cargo contract received. Crimson sector route. Compensation substantial. Departure required immediately." Corin cursed under his breath. The Crimson sector was pirate territory. No job there was ever simple. He glanced at Lysa. She stood quietly at the edge of the bridge, her skin faintly glowing in the dim light, the collar reflecting every glimmer of control panels. Her gaze was fixed on the stars ahead, but when she spoke, her words carried a warning. "This journey will not be simple, Corin. The moment you chose me, your life began to change." The Aurora kite lifted from Lumenport, climbing through the rain into the vast black sky. The neon of the city shrank behind them. Silence filled the ship again, but it was no longer empty. Corin sat in the pilot's chair, hands gripping the controls, heart unsteady. He had wanted someone to break the silence. Instead, he had taken on a mystery wrapped in silver blue skin and eyes that seemed to know more than they revealed. As the ship turned toward the Crimson Nebula, Corin could not shake the thought that he had bought more than a companion. He had stepped into a story larger than himself, and somewhere deep inside, he already knew he would never be the same again. The Aurora kite glided through the dark sea of stars, its engines humming low against the silence. Corin Vale sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the navigation charts. But his mind was elsewhere. Across the bridge, Lysa stood still, her silver-blue skin catching the faint glow of the control panels. She had not spoken much since leaving Lumenport, but her presence filled the space in ways Corin could not explain. He had told himself he only needed quiet company, yet everything about her carried an air of hidden storms. She did not move like someone bound by contract. She moved like someone who had already made her own choice. The ship's AI repeated the cargo contract details. Delivery to Outpost 9, Crimson Sector, medical supplies, Priority Alpha. Estimated travel time, 2 days. The words felt clean, precise, and unthreatening. But Corin had been flying too long to trust what appeared simple. After hours of silence, Lysa finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but edged with something sharper. "You feel it too, don't you? This cargo is not what they claim." Corin turned toward her, eyebrows drawn. "Medical crates, standard coalition seal. I scanned them myself. They're ordinary." She shook her head slowly, her dark hair slipping across her shoulder. "No, there is life inside those containers. Faint, but real. I can sense it." His throat tightened. "That's impossible." Without another word, She walked toward the corridor that led to the cargo bay. Corin hesitated, then followed. The metallic echo of their steps filled the narrow hall until they reached the sealed doors. Corin keyed in his code, and the doors opened with a hiss. Rows of containers glimmered in the cold blue light, each marked with medical insignia. The air smelled sharp, filtered by preservation systems. Lysa moved between the rows, her hand brushing against the surface of one container. Her expression tightened. Here, this one. Corin pulled his scanner from his belt and swept it across the crate. At first, the readings looked ordinary. Then the display flared red. Biosignatures, faint heartbeats, more than one. His breath caught. "Children," Lysa whispered, her voice breaking the cold silence. "Young ones, trapped in stasis." Corin staggered back, staring at the crates. "They told me this was medicine, not people." Without another word, she walked toward the corridor that led to the cargo bay. Corin hesitated, then followed. The metallic echo of their steps filled the narrow hall until they reached the sealed doors. Corin keyed in his code, and the doors opened with a hiss. Rows of containers glimmered in the cold blue light, each marked with medical insignia. The air smelled sharp, filtered by preservation systems. Lysa moved between the rows, her hand brushing against the surface of one container. Her expression tightened. "Here, this one." Corin pulled his scanner from his belt and swept it across the crate. At first, the readings looked ordinary. Then the display flared red. Biosignatures, faint heartbeats, more than one. His breath caught. "Children," Lysa whispered, her voice breaking the cold silence. "Young ones, trapped in stasis." Corin staggered back, staring at the crates. "They told me this was medicine, not people," said. Her eyes lifted to his, steady and unflinching. "You see now, someone is using your ship to traffic lives. That is why I felt the pull to you. You were not meant to leave them behind." Before Corin could answer, the ship jolted violently. Alarms wailed through the intercom. The AI's voice turned sharp. "Unidentified vessel approaching. Docking request received. Credentials, Coalition enforcement." Corin swore under his breath. Coalition does not dock unannounced in the middle of a nebula. The hull shuddered as clamps locked onto the Aurora kite. The bay lights flickered red as the cargo hold doors began to cycle open from the outside. Corin grabbed a pulse pistol from the wall panel. Instinct told him this was no inspection. 6 armored figures stormed inside, helmets blank and weapons raised. Their leader's voice came through a modulator, cold and commanding. "Stand down, Captain Vale. By order of Coalition decree, this cargo is now confiscated." Corin raised his pistol, but kept his aim steady. "Coalition decree doesn't come with forged codes. I know what this is." The intruders advanced, rifles glinting. Before Corin could fire, Lysa moved, her body blurred with sudden speed, her hands seizing a weapon from one of the soldiers. She spun with precision, firing controlled bursts that dropped 2 before they could react. Corin fired next, his shots slamming into the chest plate of another. The bay erupted in chaos. Red lights strobing against smoke curled in the air. Lysa lowered her weapon, her chest rising and falling, her eyes bright with something fierce. "You see now," she said quietly. "I am not what they sold, and this is not just cargo. These are lives worth more than credits. They will come again, stronger than this. You must decide now, Corin. Are you willing to stand for them?" Corin looked at the rows of sealed containers, the faint biosignatures still pulsing across his scanner. His stomach twisted. He had wanted a simple companion to end his silence. Instead, he stood in the middle of a crime, holding the lives of children in his hands. The AI interrupted again. "Warning, hostile vessel disengaged. Multiple pursuit signatures detected. Interception in 12 minutes. Corin holstered his weapon, his jaw clenched. They know we uncovered the truth. They won't stop now. Lysa stepped closer, her gaze steady. Then neither should we. The Aurora kite rumbled as Corin raced back to the bridge, Lysa close behind. Stars stretched across the viewport, but the crimson nebula loomed ahead, glowing like a wound in space. Danger waited inside, but safety did not exist behind them. As the engines flared brighter, Corin made his choice. He had stumbled into something far larger than himself, but turning back was no longer possible. The Aurora kite carried more than cargo now. It carried lives that needed protecting. And for the first time in years, the silence that haunted him was gone, replaced by the weight of purpose. The Aurora kite pushed deeper into the crimson nebula, its shield straining as waves of charged gas slammed against the hull. Corin Vale gripped the controls, sweat dampening his brow, every muscle tight with focus. The ship twisted through hidden currents, like a hunted bird trying to escape a storm. Behind him, Lysa stood with her palms pressed lightly to the console. Her eyes were closed, her breathing steady, but Corin could sense the tension radiating from her. She was listening in a way no scanner could. When her eyes snapped open, they glowed with a sharp blue light. "They're still behind us," she said. "3 ships. 2 are light gunships, but the 3rd is heavier. Their pilots are angry, and anger makes them careless. If you trust me, I can guide you through their trap." Corin wanted to argue, wanted to rely on data and instruments, but the truth was clear. Every warning she gave earlier had saved them. He nodded once. "Tell me what to do." "Dive now," she commanded. Without hesitation, Corin plunged the Aurora kite into a downward roll, skimming the edge of a jagged asteroid hidden in the fog. Plasma fire cut across the space they had occupied only a heartbeat before. His pulse hammered in his throat. For the next hour, they played a deadly game of pursuit. Lysa's instructions came sharp and fast. "Up 30 degrees. Cut thrusters. Now roll left." Each move kept them alive, threading through the nebula's violent currents while their pursuers fired blindly into the storm. Then the AI broke through the chaos with a new warning. Containment fluctuation detected in Stasis Pod 7. Corin cursed. "Not now." Lysa's eyes widened. "One of the children is waking too early. They'll be terrified." She rose from the console, her face set with urgency. "I have to go to them." "If you leave me, I'll be flying blind," Corin said. Her gaze softened. "Then don't be blind. Trust yourself. Trust me. Keep them safe until I return." She touched his shoulder briefly, and for an instant, he felt her emotions surge into him. Fear, determination, and a fierce sense of protection. Then she was gone, running toward the cargo bay. Alone, Corin focused on the scanners. The enemy cruiser shifted, trying to flank him. Instinct screamed, and he cut the main engines, letting the Aurora kite drift into a current. Plasma fire scorched the void where they should have been, but the ship slid silently beneath the trajectory. In the cargo bay, Lysa knelt by a stasis pod as it hissed open. A young girl tumbled into her arms, trembling, her silver-toned skin pale from stasis. The girl's mind lashed wild with panic. Lysa held her close, whispering soft words. "You are safe. You are not alone. Feel me here. Feel the one who fights for us above. You are not alone." The girl blinked, her eyes wide and bright with fear. "My name is Naira," she whispered. "I remember them, the men who took me. They wore coalition uniforms." Back on the bridge, Corin's gut twisted when Lysa returned with Naira leaning against her. "Coalition uniforms," he repeated. "Not raiders, not smugglers." Before she could answer, alarms blared. Coalition ships appeared on the scanners, their transponders unmistakable. Their formation closed in like a tightening net. A transmission crackled to life. A stern-faced man in full uniform appeared, his eyes cold. "This is Admiral Halden of Coalition Security. Captain Vale, you are carrying stolen property. Stand down and prepare for inspection." Corin's jaw tightened. "Property?" he muttered, fury rising. He wanted to answer with fire, but Lysa stepped forward. She stood tall, her chin lifted with regal poise. "Admiral Halden," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I am Lysa Rin, daughter of the Nexian High Council. Authentication code Alpha 7 Delta 3. Confirm my identity." The Admiral's face faltered. His console beeped, verifying her claim. His tone shifted instantly. "Lady Rin, you were reported missing after the summit. Many believed you dead. My disappearance was necessary," she replied. "Trafficking has spread within your own ranks. I allowed myself to be bound so I could uncover those behind it. These children are not property. They are heirs, stolen from their people. And Captain Vale is the reason I still live." Corin blinked at her in shock. Daughter of the High Council. Royalty. He had rescued more than a victim. He had brought a leader onto his ship. The transmission stuttered as Halden spoke again. "If what you say is true, we must secure you immediately. Dock with my flagship, alone." Corin's instincts screamed. He leaned toward her. "This feels like a trap." Lysa's eyes narrowed. "Truth is not the same as safety. Some of the ships around him are not loyal. They belong to those we fight against." Before Corin could speak, one of the Coalition cruisers shifted its guns and fired. The blast struck Halden's flagship, throwing the image into static. Suddenly, the fleet erupted in chaos. Ships turned on one another, revealing the corruption inside their ranks. The Aurora kite shook under the pressure of the unfolding war. Lysa grabbed the console, her expression fierce. "They're using my collar to track the children. Every corrupted ship will come for us." The AI's voice cut in sharply. "Additional hostile reinforcements inbound. Interception imminent." Corin stared at the scanners, his stomach sinking. This was no longer a simple mission. It was a civil fracture tearing open in front of him. He looked at Lysa. She stood steady, Naira clinging to her side. Her voice carried both steel and sorrow. "This is only the beginning. Once you entered the Crimson Sector with me, there was no turning back." Corin's grip tightened on the controls. His eyes locked on the swirling chaos of ships tearing into each other outside. He had wanted silence and simple companionship. Now he held the fate of children, the truth of corruption, and the trust of a woman who was more than she seemed. The Aurora kite dove into the storm, its engines roaring bright, and Corin knew with certainty that nothing about his life would ever be simple again. The Aurora kite trembled as boarding clamps locked against its hull. Warning lights strobed across the bridge, and the AI's calm voice cut through the chaos. "Hostile docking confirmed. Cargo bay breach in progress." Corin Vale's stomach tightened as he pulled a sidearm from the weapons locker. Beside him, Lysa Rin moved with steady confidence, lifting a pulse rifle like she had been waiting for this moment. "They are not after us," she said, her voice low and fierce. "They are after the children." The corridors echoed with the hiss of cutting torches. Metal groaned as sparks rained down. Corin sprinted toward the cargo hold, Lysa close behind. His boots hammered against the deck plates, his heart beating to the rhythm of alarms. When the doors finally burst inward, 6 armored intruders stormed inside. Their faceless helmets reflected the rows of stasis pods like cold mirrors. The lead soldier's voice rang out through a modulator. "Stand aside, Captain. This cargo belongs to us now." Corin ducked behind a crate and fired. The sharp crack of plasma lit the air, dropping the first intruder. Lysa moved like liquid steel, her rifle spitting bursts of controlled fire that struck with perfect aim. 2 more fell before they could even steady their weapons. But the last 3 pressed forward. One seized Naira, the young Nexian girl who had awakened earlier, dragging her away from the pods. "No!" Corin shouted, charging out of cover. His pulse pistol spat fire, striking the soldier in the chest. The grip on Naira broke, and she stumbled into his arms. He pulled her close, shielding her with his own body. The other 2 intruders advanced, weapons humming with lethal energy. Then something unexpected happened. One of the rescued children, a quiet boy with watchful eyes, stepped forward. His name was Ash. Without fear, he placed his hands on the cargo console. Systems flared to life, hydraulic arms snapping out with sudden power. The arms seized the attackers, slamming them into bulkheads with bone-rattling force. Corin's breath caught. How did he do that? Lysa's voice was steady, though her eyes burned. These are not ordinary children. They are heirs, each chosen for their gifts. Ash was meant to shape machines. Every one of them carries a future worth protecting. Silence fell as the last intruder dropped limp to the floor. The children clung to one another, wide-eyed and trembling, but alive. Corin lowered his weapon, his chest heaving with relief. ... Then the calm cracked alive with Admiral Halden's strained voice. "Phoenix, report. Traitor ships are breaking formation. They are preparing suicide runs on my flagship. If they succeed, the Council dies." Lysa's face paled, but her resolve only hardened. If the flagship falls, Nexus collapses. My people's future dies with it. Corin's jaw clenched as he carried Nera back to safety. Then they don't ram the flagship. Not while I'm at the helm. He raced back to the bridge. Lysa followed, her rifle slung across her shoulder, her free hand guiding the frightened children. Outside the viewport, 6 hostile ships broke away, their engines blazing red as they hurtled toward Halden's vessel. "Ye cannot stop them all," Corin muttered, his hands flying over the controls. "You can with me," Lysa said firmly. She placed her hand on his shoulder, her touch sparking with calm strength. "Their rage makes them loud. I can hear every move before they make it. Together, we can cut them down." The Aurora kite roared forward, its thrusters shrieking under the strain. Corin weaved through the crossfire, plasma arcs burning past their hull. Lysa's commands came sharp and fast. "Up now, 30 degrees. Cut engines. Roll starboard." Each order pulled them out of the path of destruction, threading the kite through enemy lines. 2 of the suicide vessels were forced off course, crashing into debris fields that tore them apart. But the others pressed on, relentless. Corin's knuckles whitened as he yanked the ship into a dive, catching a gravity eddy that flung them back into pursuit. The Coalition flagship loomed ahead, its shields flickering under heavy assault. Traitor ships closed fast, preparing to strike. Corin bared his teeth. Not today. He triggered the kite's last line of defense. Twin torpedoes streaked from their launchers, slamming into one attacker. The explosion lit the void in a brief starburst. Lysa leaned forward, her eyes glowing. "To port, now." Corin obeyed, spinning the kite in a wide arc. The maneuver cut across another vessel's path, forcing it to collide with its ally. Both ships erupted in fire, torn apart by the impact, but one remained, racing straight toward Halden's flagship. "We are too far," Corin said through clenched teeth. Lysa's voice softened, but her conviction was unshakable. Then we use what they do not expect. The children. He glanced at her in shock. They are just kids. Not just, she corrected. They are leaders in the making. Give them the chance, and they will save themselves. Before Corin could argue, Ash stepped forward again. His hands moved across the console, his young face calm with sudden certainty. The Aurora Kite's system surged, linking with the flagship. Power redirected, creating a burst of false signals that scrambled the enemy's targeting. The last suicide ship faltered, veering off course. Coalition loyalist guns seized the moment, tearing it apart before it could recover. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of comms. Admiral Halden's voice returned, strained but alive. The flagship holds. Your actions saved us all. Corin sagged against the controls, every muscle trembling. His ship was battered, shields scarred, but they were alive. Lysa stood beside him, her expression calm, but her eyes blazing with quiet pride. You wanted a companion to break your silence, she said softly. Instead, you chose to protect a people. You chose us. The children gathered near, their eyes reflecting the glow of the stars. Naira clung to Lysa's hand, while Ash watched Corin with newfound trust. The Aurora Kite turned away from the battlefield, its engines burning steady against the dark. Behind them, coalition ships clashed in civil war. Ahead lay only uncertainty. Corin stared into the endless void, his heart heavy but resolute. He had stepped into a war of shadows, but he was no longer alone. And as the ship vanished into the distance, one truth remained clear. He had not bought a pet. He had found a purpose, and nothing would ever be the same again.